Welcome to the Insomnia preseason show. I hope you're able to sort of relax during this show. This show is going to be mainly a show to tell you about our upcoming season and to thank some of our reviewers and people who listen. I am your host, Marco Timpano. Joining me in the studio is someone you often hear me talk about and someone who's going to be playing more of a role in Season 4. It's Amanda Barker, who's also my spouse. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
And what we're going to do is, first of all, I want to say that our Season 4 will launch on March 18th. So the day after St. Patrick's Day is the first Wednesday, well, not the first Wednesday of the month, but rather the first Wednesday in the middle of the month. And so we're going to launch on March 18th, and I'm very excited about our new season. We have a bunch of great guests, and Amanda, you're going to be on the season more as well, so that's going to be a lot of fun.
Great. Yeah, looking forward.
And, of course, we're looking to get sponsors and whatnot so that this show can continue and we don't take such a long break in between seasons.
Yeah, so if anybody has any ideas in terms of patrons, obviously, or sponsorship that you think would be appropriate for our podcast, we just so appreciate our big and ever-growing fan base, so do let us know.
We have some great patrons on Patreon, and I want to send a special thank you to them. And, of course, I will be doing an episode strictly for them to thank them. And let us now take a walk down our reviews, because we never really sort of delve into that. So where this episode isn't one of those truly sort of, calm sort of episodes that are really going to help you drift off. This is the pre-episode episode, if there is such a thing. And we're going to just thank our fans and people who listen. So anyone who hasn't done a review, I want to thank you as well for listening. And if you're so inclined, please review us on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you listen to podcasts. A 5-star review gets us more listeners, and that's a good thing for our show. So, Amanda, do you want to start by reading one of the reviews?
Sure. I guess I'll just start at the beginning, the first one I see here on iTunes reviews. We want to thank everybody. This is by a person who's typed in a lot of letters. So it's hey, Judy, and then we've got sort of that thing where you just type a bunch of letters on the keyboard. So a little bit anonymous here. But they wanted to, first off, they put a little 5-star there, and they've got the prayer hands, which is that big thank you sort of emoji. So thank you already. Off to a good start here.
I didn't know you could do emojis on reviews. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly, but there seems to be a few here, so that's some nice learning. So their review says, "This podcast has been a blessing for me. Along with having insomnia, I also have anxiety about falling asleep. So falling asleep has always been the worst part of my day. But every time I throw this on, I barely remember the act of falling asleep anymore. Huge feat. I even throw it on when I need to zone into my work now. Incredibly soothing and funny and boring in the best way. The perfect recipe. I can't thank you guys enough. I say it at 2:32 a.m.
Wow, that's such a lovely review. Thank you so much for that one. I also experienced that anxiety, so you're not alone there. And I'm so glad that you're using it also for your day. That's one of the things that always surprises me, Amanda, how people will use this podcast in ways that I didn't think people would.
Well, that's just it. Some people find that it's a nice sort of background conversation for a long drive, or even a short drive, or, just going about their work on a day-to-day where they don't want to fully engage into something where they can't do anything else. And I know I do that a lot with both podcasts and with TV as well, where I don't want to fully engage, but I do want something I can eat in front of or, clean with, that type of thing.
Sure. Carrie in Halifax, who we both know, will often use it to start her day when she's getting ready for work.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because she had told me that it sort of eases her into the day without having to listen to the news or people on the radio who are just too excited for her that early in the morning. I'm going to read one of our American reviewers. This is from Seymour Fam. I rarely make it through an episode. Puts me right to sleep. And that's why we always say this is the only podcast we hope you never get to the end of.
Great. I'll just continue on here. This is Lorraine R., who says, interesting and soothing. I stumbled onto this podcast one night, delighted to hear from a fellow Canadian, delighted with the content, and delighted to fall asleep. Can I make a suggestion? Maybe quieter music at the end, or none at all. So often the music wakes me up again. Little frowny face there. Sleepless in Saskatchewan.
Well, Sleepless in Saskatchewan, we are really working on that to lower the music at the end. The music at the end sort of signifies the end of our show, and it helps to wrap it up with a bookend, and that's why it is there. Also for consistency's sake, and a little secret, it helps with the editing. So we will do our best to make the music a little less loud at the end, and we are listening to that note. And if you wish to increase your stars to 5, we'd appreciate that as well. I want to read one from the UK, Amanda.
Oh, wonderful.
So one of our listeners, we have listeners who are so great all over the world. This one here is from Neil Podcast. And they say, amazing, Marco has a very calm and therapeutic voice. So I never think of my voice as calm. I don't know if you think it's calm, Amanda, knowing me for...
Well, when you're helping me with, some day-to-day struggles, definitely there's a therapeutic quality to those types of conversations. So absolutely, I can see it. I can hear it.
Albert Parrott from the U.S. says, finally, a cure for my insomnia. I listen to this podcast every night. Well, Albert Parrott, thank you for listening every night. We do appreciate it.
This one's one of the longer ones. It's from Sleepless in Limbo. It's a nice 5-star. When I stumble upon this podcast, I had no idea it was my friend Marco who had created it and who was the host. After I got over the fact that it was someone I knew who was lulling me to sleep, LOL, I have to say, it works. 3 thumbs up. Marco, you have the perfect timbre to your voice. It's very soft and relaxing. And I love your interviews and the chit-chatting about everything and nothing at all, with some very interesting people and subjects. Thank you for creating a space where all of us sleepless in limbo can go to and not feel so alone at the wee small hours. I love it. 3 thumbs, and then a bunch of stars, and it's a 5-star review. I don't know who Sleepless in Limbo is, though.
I don't know either, but they say they're a friend of mine. And if they are, I would love to have you as a guest on the podcast, and please reveal who you are on our podcast. So just reach out to me and say, I'd like to be on it.
Wonderful.
This one's not a great review, Amanda, but I do want to recognize it. It's called, the title is Not Boring, and it's 3 stars. It's from Joan Zill, 2 Z's in that. And I said Z because it's an American review.
Well, Z would be Canadian.
Oh, sorry.
So it would be 2 Z's.
2 Z's.
Yeah.
You're right. I said Z because I'm Canadian. There
that's
you go.
right.
Maybe
you
that's why I got 3 stars. Okay. Joan Zill says, therein lies the problem, which is I get so interested in the topic that it keeps me awake. And this is something interesting that I have received feedback from people that some of them find some of the episodes interesting. And to that I say, skip that episode if you find that you're really into golf and you see the golf episode and you're like, I might stay up for this. Or
Did you say golf or golf?
Golf.
Golf.
Golf. You know, the golfing?
Oh, that's so
It
interesting.
sounded like golf?
It does sound, every time you say it, it sounds like the Persian Gulf. And I honestly
goodness.
thought that's what you were talking about.
Well, if I am talking about a golf body of water as well, and
Sure.
you find that interesting, I say skip that episode or use it as a transition to your next stage or getting into that stage of sleep. In other words, let that episode calm you if that topic calms you. I'm sorry, Joan Zill, that this podcast isn't working for you, and I hope you do find something that helps you fall asleep.
Well, I will say, I don't know that she said it wasn't working for her. It just might not been working for her in the intended way. And that's fine, because oftentimes people use things that are not intended to fall asleep to
Sure.
TV shows or what or radio shows. Although you do have that objective, obviously, it's inherent in the title. As we were mentioning, if you use it for other purposes, even if you do find it interesting, great.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's for everyone.
Listen, that's the beauty of podcasting is that if one podcast doesn't work for you, there could be, and hopefully there is, others that will.
Absolutely. So this is from TJ in Montreal, who says, my every night go-to, 5 stars. I love this. It really does help putting your busy mind at rest after a long day. And as a plus, I've learned a lot of fun facts. Does absolutely work. Would recommend. So there you go. That's somebody who's using it for insomnia, but also using it just to unwind after a long day of work.
This one's from the UK. I love the name. Colonel Grapple, 5 stars, fantastic. Does exactly what it sets out to do. My insomnia is virtually a thing of the past. And then a series of Z's or Z's.
Wonderful. UK, so I guess it would be Z's. Farida, 166, says, helps me sleep, 5 stars. I love this podcast. Usually I can't sleep because I keep thinking about everything that happened today. And when I hear your podcast, it can just switch my brain off.
There you go. Once again, I just want to remind you, Season 4, March 18th. This is a pre-season episode where we're reading our fan emails and our reviews. This is solely reviews on iTunes, because if we went to everything, it would be a 2-hour show. And if you want that, maybe we'll do it in the future. Charming, relaxed, fun, 5 stars from Torontese. Well, this is an American review, but Torontese would suggest to me that this person was originally from Toronto. As in Italian, that means someone from Toronto. Picture yourself at the lake with a couple of friends. Everyone is relaxed and the scene is quiet. You lie back and close your eyes while you listen to the others chatting. Their conversation goes in all sorts of different directions. They talk about pickles and tea and fishing. You can keep following the conversations, or you can choose to drift off to sleep. Either way, you win. This is how I would describe listening to an episode of the Insomnia Project. That's so lovely. Thank you.
That's really lovely.
I added, that's so lovely. Thank you. Torontese did not. Yeah.
So Sonita Gloves wanted everyone to know with, I'm assuming her 5-star review here. I find this podcast seriously puts me to sleep. I love that. Just nice and simple.
What kind of gloves do you like to wear, Amanda?
I like a fingerless glove,
Oh.
so I can have access to my digits. And then after that, I have right under it a gem of a podcast, 5 stars. Discovered this podcast during a sleepless night and have listened to or fallen asleep to pretty much every single one. Love the mundane topics, Marco and Nidhi's soothing voices, the slow pace, and the occasional guests that come on. Very relaxing and comforting. Thank you for this. It's gotten me through some long nights.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for listening. I have Trip Shakespeare, cool name. Relaxing is the title, and they wrote, love this podcast.
Oh, that's lovely. Really lovely. This one, more, please more. So it's a great review, but also a bit of a protestation or complaint. Truly enjoy this show, but more episodes, please.
We're going to be working towards that. It's tricky sometimes to do, especially with this podcast. We're doing our best to do as many episodes as we can, and hopefully this year we will get the sponsorship that will allow us to do as many as you need. What is the name of that reviewer? What is the name of that reviewer that asked for more?
Oh, that was from Hardshog.
So Hardshog, we're going to do our best for you this year.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm going to bounce to the UK, and this one's called Formerly Lost Addict. And they write, fantastic podcast, good topics, soothing voices, and most importantly, clear audio. I recommend this cast. Thank you so much for the clear audio. We do our best on that front, so I'm glad someone's actually mentioned it.
You do work really hard on the audio, and it does take several hours for each episode to edit and revise, so that's a lovely mention. This is from Melly Girl 1987. Wonderful podcast. 5 stars. An all-around great podcast. Marco is an excellent host.
Oh, well, thank you for that. That really speaks to my ego. Sorry.
And Melly adds top shelf stuff.
Oh.
I kind of love that top shelf idea. I'll tell you, I didn't know what top shelf meant until very, very recently.
Oh, I don't even know what it means. I just thought it meant really great.
No, I believe it's a bartending term. I'm surprised. I thought you would know.
Of course.
Because the top shelf is the the best. So if you want something from the top shelf, then it would be the more premium vodka or spirit.
The more expensive liquors are on the top shelf.
The better gin.
Because they're used less. Of course, it makes sense, Amanda. Amanda says she thought I would know that because I do a podcast called Eat and Drink, where I make a bunch of cocktails. And I should know that. This is one of my favorite names of reviewers. Blue Crab, Amanda, from the U.S. says, "This is my favorite go-to sleep podcast. Marco and Nidhi have the most soothing, soft voices that lull me to sleep most nights. Thank you." We're going to try to get Nidhi on the podcast more this season. She's so busy with her job and her work that unfortunately we don't have as much time to connect in the studio, but we will endeavor to do our best.
Yeah, we're very proud of Nidhi, and she's always a member of the family around here, and she's gone really far in her current career, and we're just so proud of her. This is from Andrea D., who simply says 5 stars, favorite podcast, which is lovely.
That is so nice.
And I might do another one here. Yeah. This is Nessie268. Love this podcast, 5 stars. This person goes on to say, this podcast is the best. Marco and Nidhi both have lovely voices, and their conversations are always pleasant and genuine. I don't always fall asleep, but I'm always more relaxed. It's like being invited into someone's living room for a chat with permission to drift off if you feel like it. Thank you. That's a wonderful review. I think that's fantastic. I've drifted off on many a couch during many conversations, especially not so much these days, but a few years ago I was working quite heavily in morning radio. So anytime I would endeavor to do something at night, I would inevitably sort of leave the room spiritually and fall asleep around 8 o'clock.
This one is from the U.S. Victoria 1492 is the handle. And Victoria writes, I discovered the Insomnia Project one night after trying almost everything else to get to sleep. Relaxing music, guided meditation, other podcasts, you name it. After resigning myself to the fact that I probably wouldn't be getting much sleep that night, I decided to try one more podcast. And I'm so glad I did. Marco and Nidhi have 2 of the most soothing voices I've ever heard. I was immediately relaxed. Listening to their episode about coffee was surprisingly calming. And the best part is that I woke up the next morning realizing I didn't know how it ended. This is now my go-to podcast for falling asleep. I even started listening to it during the day while I work so I can get through the episodes without dozing off. That's so great. I really enjoy their conversations and always look forward to new episodes. Thank you, Marco and Nidhi. You're welcome.
That was a really, really lovely thing to write. This person, Liz B, 67, says, it does the trick. 5 stars. I listen every night. Never seem to make it to the end. Thank you. And Shannon H goes on to say, so relaxing. 5 stars. These podcasts, so probably this podcast or these podcasts, not only helped me sleep, but eased my anxiety. Very calming. Something about your guys' voices. Highly recommended.
Wonderful.
Lovely.
Marian or Maren O, M-A-I-R-E-N.
M-A-I-R-E-N, Marin. It to me feels like an Irish or Celtic name.
Okay. Well, Marin, I hope I got it right. Marin O. I listen to the Insomnia Project every single day. I have a few favorite episodes that I listen to over and over again. Episode 7 is my falling asleep episode. The quilting episode is a calming favorite. Butterflies in maple syrup make me laugh. I listen to it when walking places around town, when resting in bed, when I'm overwhelmed and I need familiar, repetitive stuff to calm me down, when I'm doing chores. I even listen when I'm waking up. My friend and I listen to the episodes separately but talk about them together. And Marco and Nidhi's voices instantly calm me down, along with the intro music. And they put in brackets, don't change it, ! Their distinct personalities shine through and make the podcast worthwhile every time. Please never stop making this podcast, and if you ever need donations to keep going, I'm sure many people, including myself, would be willing to contribute fantastic, invaluable content. Oh, that's so lovely.
That is lovely.
Thank you for that. And, if you do wish to contribute, patreon.com/The Insomnia Project is where you can go. You'll get extra content. And, of course, we thank all our patrons.
I do want to say, it takes a special purpose and person to go ahead and write a review, any review. Oftentimes you listen to something and you think, oh, I really enjoy it. But taking that next step to go ahead and let the world know that you enjoy it and to help us in that way is invaluable. So thank you. Lemontina, which has got to be one of my favorite names here. Enjoyable and relaxing Z or Z's or Z's. Lots of Z's there and some 5 stars too. You don't have to have insomnia to enjoy this podcast, but if you do, you'll be glad you listened and slept. Really lovely.
Lemontina, I'm drinking some lemon water in honor of you.
I love Lemontina. That's a great name. YOLO 403. Great name as well. Serenely enjoyable. 5 stars. These are all 5 stars, so maybe I'll stop saying that. The Insomnia Project is one of the most interesting podcasts to help you sleep. I love drifting off and never really ever finishing an episode until the next morning. That's a great idea. Always enjoyable and fun and totally sleep-inducing. Go figure. That's a great idea. I do that sometimes as well.
You?
Yeah, where I'll drift off and then think, oh, but I didn't hear how that ended. But then it's always kind of a fun journey, even the next night, to kind of go, where did I leave off on this one?
Sure. I'm going to bounce to the UK review by OTOT or OT or OT. Love this podcast. I can't sleep without it. Your conversations flow really nicely, and some of the topics are really interesting. Keep making more and keep up the good work.
That's lovely. This is Val La La, who says, helps me relax. This podcast helps talk me down off the shelf when my brain is full of all the things I have to do. And I like that things is in quotes there because so often we fill our brains with so many things, I make a cup of tea and listen to Marco and his amazing guests and let my worries slip away. If you need some decompress time, some you time, some get me out of my head time, this is the podcast for you.
Wow.
That's lovely. You can't ask for a more fulfilling, glowing. That's why you do what you do.
I love our listeners, and I love these reviews, and they really touch my heart when I read them. So thank you so much. MM Miracle777 writes, when I first heard about this podcast, I was skeptical, but it totally works. Was interested in the conversation, but their soothing voices put me to sleep, and I didn't even finish the episode. Such a great idea, and so helpful for those of us who wake up at 3 a.m. and can't go back to sleep. So we end up playing a game on our phone and then getting sleepy and dropping the phone on our face. This podcast saved my face. Well, MM Miracle, I'm glad we could save your face. That's very cute.
This one says, soothing. Listening gives me some calm as I try to sleep. And I should mention that this has been written by somebody who calls himself Angry 1003. So listening gives me some calm as I try to sleep. I find the voices soothing, like a lovely, soft bedtime story.
Well, Angry 1003, we hope our podcast doesn't make you angry and does exactly what you says.
Seems to, yeah.
Jalapeno Bean says, I love falling asleep with you guys. Can we just get an episode, E-Wet Day? And it has a face that has like clenched teeth. I'm not sure what E-Wet Day means.
How do you spell that?
Maybe when they typed it, some of the words didn't get through because it says, can we just get an episode, the letter E, and then wet day, ?
Like maybe it was supposed to be
Wednesday? Can we get it
on Wednesday?
Every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday.
Okay. We're working really hard, Jalapeno Bean, to make that happen. And I'll try to get it out on wet days as well, in case I misunderstood what was said there.
Yeah, that holiday that we don't celebrate. So this one is from Red Blazer 416. So for those who don't know readily, 416 is one of the Toronto area codes, certainly the longest Toronto area code. So probably a Toronto-based listener. If you're ever up in the middle of the night, unable to sleep, this podcast is the best. It doesn't bore you to sleep as much as soothing you to sleep. Their voices are so calming that you start to feel zen and fall asleep naturally. Highly recommended from a recovering insomniac.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I received an email from Janine, won't say the last name, and she wants to see an episode in season 4 about garlands. And I'm going to say bunting. I'm going to add bunting to that.
Yeah, bunting and garlands. I would love to do a deep dive.
Okay, so Amanda, maybe you and I are going to do an episode that explores garlands. And she sent me some photos of some beautiful garlands. And I'm going to say bunting as well that she has in her home.
Now, bunting's a word we learned from our niece.
Yes.
And maybe we'll discuss that a little bit more.
But our UK listeners will be like, of course, bunting.
They know what bunting is, yeah.
We didn't, but you'll find out in season 4, March 18th.
UK listeners and all kids under 10 who have watched Peppa Pig, I think. All right, so this one is from W. Janae, who says, very, very relaxing. This is a longer one, so thank you for this, W. Janae. This isn't a podcast that is so completely boring it will put you to sleep, but rather one that is so soothing it will put you into such a chilled state of being, to the point where, after an episode is done, you feel inspired to be still and rest. The host chooses topics that are seemingly mundane and purposely, I assume, not over-intellectually stimulating. The thing is, listening to them speak in gentle tones and share their genuine thoughts and experiences is really enjoyable to listen to. It doesn't feel dumbed down. While I was drawn to this podcast because it seemed like a novelty, I've subscribed to it because I think the concept is brilliant, and Marco and Nidhi host so well together.
Thank you so much. Who is that from?
W. Janae.
Wow, W. Janae, thank you so much. Please subscribe to our podcast as well if you enjoy it, because it does help our podcast sort of get up on the ratings with iTunes. And Amanda, that brings us to the end of this preview episode that I wanted to put out today. You'll notice that I put a photo of me with the launch date of season 4 that we just took some photos, and it's me behind a mic with a quizzical look, let's say.
Oh, yeah, those are really wonderful photos taken by the incredible Tyra Sweet, who not only is a wonderful photographer, but also a host on TV for a kids program on YTV. I believe it's called The Zone.
Okay.
So you can see Tyra Sweet on weekdays, and she took that photograph, and now I think is a good friend of the show.
I should get her on as well.
Absolutely.
Tyra Sweet. She can talk about photography and photographing people's faces and some tips and stuff.
She's very interesting too, because she, I believe, teaches an improv class for improv for anxiety.
Oh.
So that's definitely something that relates back to this show.
And so many people have said that this podcast, The Insomnia Project, has helped them when they are anxious. So.
Absolutely. I mean, we just read so many reviews saying exactly that. So I think she'd be a great fit to the program. And I just wanted to say that I'm looking forward to being cozy in this booth a little bit more as we move forward.
Thank you all for your reviews. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to everyone who's found this useful and who has reached out. If you have any tips with regards to how one can get to sleep in an easier way, let us know. And if you have an episode idea, definitely let us know. You can find us on The Insomnia Project at Listen and Sleep. You look us up, go to our show notes. It'll tell you how to get there. And until March 18th, we hope you will listen and wait, and then listen on March 18th and sleep. Thank you, Amanda, for being in the studio today.
Thank you.